Now you might say, Ezra, this is an exaggeration. Don't say bought off. That's fake news. Well, actually, and I just learned this today, the media party has been having secret meetings. Secret meetings to talk about how to divide up the $595 million bailout. It's like crooks after a bank heist. They sit around the table, count the money, and figure out who gets what. Now, you couldn't make this stuff up. It sounds like fake news. Well, let me ask you, if the media party were meeting in secret with a Trudeau-approved political activist running the meeting, do you think those media companies would tell you, now I know you're thinking, Ezra, it's crazy, conspiracy theory, shut up? Well, weirdly, one of the journalists in the meeting blabbed about it. A left-wing activist journalist named Jesse Brown, who runs an alt-left clickbait site called Canadaland. Someone told me that Brown was invited to one of these bailout meetings and that he talked about it on his podcast. So I listened, and he was invited, and he did blab about it. Ooh, I don't think he's going to be invited back. You see, this is the other half of the censorship story, because Trudeau would not dare to have the Minister of Defense warning Canadians about reading the wrong editorials and demanding you go to your awareness sessions. Trudeau couldn't get away with threatening Facebook with penalties if they don't delete his enemies' comments. Trudeau couldn't do that if he didn't pay off the mainstream media to look the other way. And he has, and they are. And Jesse Brown blabbed about it. He did a podcast here. I'm going to play a few clips from his podcast. Take a listen.
It's the second meeting like this that I've gone to as this news bailout process. I was invited very similarly in the very early stages to come, and they said, you can come and have a seat at the table as we discuss a possible federal government news subsidy, but you cannot say who was there, and you cannot say who said what. But you can say that it happened and that you went, and you can kind of talk in broad strokes about it. And this was like a tricky decision for me because I cover the media. So I don't like agreeing to gag orders of any kind. And I have this kind of like internal discussion with myself. Like, well, am I better knowing the stuff or not knowing it?
Is that how we make laws and policy and budgets in Canada? In secret, elite, invitation-only meetings? So not in Parliament, not in committees, not even in public forums, in secret? Oh, you better believe it. And if you can believe it, Trudeau apparently hired an American to facilitate the meeting, an American who worked for Hillary Clinton's campaign.
Pierre Omidyar, the guy behind The Intercept. So he throws this thing, a very sexy title, Public Investment in Journalism, a collaborative policy development workshop.
As titles go, that's a good one.
Yeah, rolls off the tongue. And it was held like in, kind of unlisted in some room at this Democracy Exchange Democracy Summit. The whole thing is kind of from the Democracy Exchange Summit, which I think like one of the guys behind it is like a guy, a navigator. I don't know, like untangle this stuff. So this is at Ryerson University. Anyhow, what can I tell you? We sat around, the idea was getting stakeholders together. And I can't tell you who was there, but I can tell you that, like, if you think about who are stakeholders in a media bailout, the unions, the media organizations themselves, government's a stakeholder, whoever organizationally you might think of as a stakeholder was represented, I guess with one exception, the public. There was nobody there representing the public, but I was not there to be a pain in the ass necessarily.
Hey, guys, I think we found some foreign meddling in our election. I think we found it. Now, obviously, these being leftists, all they care about is milking you and your tax dollars. Take a listen to this.
A big company that had a big audience, they said, well, this should be determined by how big your audience is. And then other people who were from companies where they felt like, well, we have the best values. They said it should be values-based. And other people said, well, no, it should be about innovation, startups. And no, it should be innovation-based as to who gets. So everybody had their own idea that was like a thinly disguised version of like me. I get the money, my thing. I don't want to be left out. And I chimed in to say, dudes, it doesn't matter. Like, however you define what a journalist is.
Sounds like the Unifor Journalism Union was there. I think that's what it sounded like. To me, it makes sense. I mean, Unifor, the largest journalist union, they publicly declared war on the Conservatives in the upcoming campaign, if you remember this tweet. They're spending their members' union dues on that campaign. So obviously Trudeau and the Clinton staff for running this thing are going to richly, richly reward them. Now, I obviously wasn't invited to this, but it sure sounds like they talked about me. I mean, not me, myself as a person, but me as the personification of the rebel, as in me, a stand-in for our other journalists, our independent journalism, and me as a stand-in for you, the people who were excluded, you, the people who need to be re-educated at awareness sessions. Oh my God, awareness. I didn't see you at the awareness session last week. I'm going to need a doctor's note for that. You and me were mocked at this meeting by the elites, led by some Hillary Clinton staffer brought in by Trudeau to tell us how it's going to be. I think that Jesse Brown has a few drops of genuine journalist left in him. He says this is his second secret meeting, but obviously he's broken the secret, the first person to do so. I don't think he's going to be invited back. I think there's a small part of Jesse Brown that realizes that when you're paid by the government to be a journalist, you're not a journalist anymore. To be crude, it's like sex. When you're paid for sex, you become a prostitute. I think Jesse Brown knows that, and he also knows that the rest of us know that, and I think he has a tiny part of his brain saying, don't do it. They're going to call me that forever if I take the dough.
The amount of discredit that is heaping upon any journalist and journalism itself is as big a crisis, I think, as the financial crisis that journalism is facing. Like, there is an effort that we are inheriting from the States to just discredit. Like, even if we get journalists in all those legislatures, we're getting to a point where, like, we're so hated. We're so out of touch with how hated we are. We really are.
I don't think we're out of touch with how hated we are. I don't think I am
telling
anyway.
the public that we work so hard, we're working overtime, we're doing this for you, and the public's like, you're a liar, and learn to code. That's the new hashtag for all the laid off journalists. Learn to code.
You know, he talks a little bit about how Donald Trump invented the phrase fake news and how it's an American thing coming up from the States. No, Donald Trump just popularized the term fake news. And like all good nicknames, of which Trump is the master, nicknames only stick if there's some truth to it. Low energy Jeb Bush, crooked Hillary Clinton. Those only worked because people say, yeah, I see that. Yeah, that's a good one. People don't say a nickname if it's not a good one. We know that the mainstream media is partisan and biased, and we know they're not neutral. We know that they're going to be much, much worse after the bailout goes through. We see that already. We know that they're fine with voices like ours being silenced because they're on the inside with the $595 million already asking for more money. The fact that these other journalists were part of this secret meeting and kept it a secret shows you that it's true. They really are bought and paid for. Because if they were real journalists, they would have reported on the newsworthy meeting they attended. They were bought and paid for, but not us. They will never buy us. And it will take Harjit Sajjan and a tank to shut us up. That's an excerpt from the Ezra Levant show. Every day I do a video monologue and then I interview an interesting guest and then I end by reading my hate mail. But you've got to subscribe to it, which you can do at therebel.media/shows.